All right. So today is the 24th, the last of our coffee advent calendar videos. And I want to start off by saying Merry Christmas. Now, the second thing I need to say is that I've already recorded the video and made the coffee, but I ran out of space on my phone, so it stopped when I was about halfway through. And this is going to be a longer one, both because it's the final day and because of what specifically day it is. There's a lot more I want to say. The third thing is that this is not the last of the videos. I've decided that I'm going to keep going doing these, even if I just make my normal, regular coffee. We do have a few other coffee options, a couple holiday ones. There's a cinnamon sugar cookie, a chocolate raspberry, and a latte that I want to talk to you guys about. But even once I run out of new coffees to taste test and try, we'll just make a regular coffee and talk about whatever I have on my mind at that point. And what this what this video is specifically going to be about is two things. One, uh, how Christmas is not really what it was supposed to be, and the very origins of it are actually kind of messed up. And second of all, demons are real and they live inside of us. Now, first, before we do that, let's talk about the coffee. Day 24 is amaretto coffee. Mm. And it is amazing. It smells like maraschino cherries and it tastes really good. Here we have the amaretto already punctured. I've never been a huge drinker. I really only ever drank socially and then sometimes due to depression. But even then, it was not something I was never the type to like sit and alone with a bottle or anything like that. If I were drinking due to depression, it was like going out to alcohol parties type stuff, where uh, it was always social for me. Now, that being said, I do like a good beer or a good wine with dinner or sometimes a nice mixed drink. And amaretto, sorry, and grenadine were always two of my favorite sweeter drinks, and I absolutely love this amaretto coffee. It is probably my favorite of the bunch. I was thinking earlier in the shower about which coffee of all these had been my favorite, and I was leaning towards the cherry coffee we did the other day, but I think the amaretto takes the cake, and I think it was a good idea that they saved it for the 24th. Save the best for last, you know? And that's kind of what we're doing here. So first of all, I want to do a little disclaimer. I kind of forgot in the previous video. So not necessarily, well, the one I recorded that you guys didn't see. Uh, wasn't that I forgot it. I just hadn't gotten to it yet. And it's probably something I should say before we really get into the weeds here. This is going to be a longer video again because this is the last one. There's a lot I want to say. So, pursuant to Christmas not being what everyone kind of thinks it is, I think most people don't really understand who Jesus was. Even people that go to church all the time. And it just occurred to me that the way I hold the phone, I may actually sometimes be like blocking the microphone. And I don't really watch these videos back. I kind of just do them and then shoot them off. I like the whole, there's no honesty in content creation anymore. Not that that's entirely true, but there's a lack of honesty in content creation these days. So this whole thing, all these are done in one take, except for like the two videos where I added a little bit on at the end, but literally all I did was hit record again and then splice them together and send off as is, no editing or anything. They're all unscripted. Charlie likes to interfere sometimes. Random things happen, like running out of video or hitting the wrong button and talking to a photo of myself instead of recording a video. So all this is just out there for the whole world to see. Now, the big thing that I think most people don't realize about Jesus is he wasn't. When I started streaming to Twitch in the white robe, reading the Bible, which is something I did years ago now. We're probably going to go back to the Bible at some point on our mental health and philosophy streams, but recently we've been reading the collected works of Plato, which mostly talk about Socrates, and it's remarkable the similarities between Socrates' life and Jesus and the things that they said. But I'm pretty sure Jesus might have read Plato. But continuing on, one of the most interesting comments that I ever had when doing that is someone came in and said, Jesus was a simp. And I don't think the person who was using that word knows what it means. And they definitely don't know Jesus if they were going to say something like that. Because Jesus was a warrior poet who had such an intense following that the historically most powerful empire in the world decided it was necessary to put him to death to prevent an insurrection. So, like if you zoom out and look at it from a purely historical perspective, taking all the religious stuff out of it, that's what happened. Because most people don't realize this, but crucifixion was not the normal means of execution in the Roman Empire. That was specifically for traitors and insurrectionists and revolutionaries. It was intended to send a message to their followers to quell the uprising. He specifically said, you can go in the Bible and look it up. And of course, different interpretations, different translations of it. I did not come to bring peace, but the sword. I came to set father against son. He creates divisions by speaking about love and goodness in a world that even back then was overrun by hate and evil. And it's only gotten worse since then. The world has had 2,000 years to get worse than when he came the first time. It had 2,000 years to get better, but that wasn't the choice that it made. I think we can all agree with that. And so I know sometimes I have gone off on some of these videos and said certain things, especially in an aggressive way, but I do my best to always follow his teaching and his path. There are three things that I want to speak on in regards to that before we get into the other parts of the video, which are a lot of people have the wrong interpretation of sin. Doing drugs is not necessarily a sin, but feeding an addiction can be a sin. So, really what Jesus said was that it's not what you put into your body that causes you to sin, but what you allow to leave it. And what he means by that is, if you want to eat meat on Friday, go ahead and eat meat on Friday. Unless it feels like a sin in your heart, then don't do it. Because if you feel like it's a sin, then it probably is a sin. If you feel like you're doing something wrong, then you're probably doing something wrong. Your heart knows. A lot of people like to say they don't have a moral compass, and I feel like it may be true for some people. There are psychopaths and sociopaths that struggle to understand the difference between right and wrong, that understand to relate to people and understand how their actions affect other people. But even for those people, there are guides out there that have been written down as to how to treat people well, and they choose not to follow them. Really, the number one thing you need to do to avoid sin is simply follow the golden rule. Treat others as you wish to be treated. And there are pitfalls with that, because, some of you are into some weird shit. But if you know it's something weird, don't do it to other people, all right? If if it makes if it's not something you would just go and record a video saying, yeah, I do this at home, in my bedroom, by myself, sometimes with some, don't do it to other people. It's that simple. The second thing I want to say, it's kind of two things in one. One is words, one is actions, but it's both in the similar vein. When I call out hypocrites and liars, it's not, even when I get really mad about it, it's not giving into hate. It's coming from a place of love. Because I ask you to remember that Jesus was put to death specifically because he called the religious and political leaders of his time snakes and hypocrites and liars. Jesus also went into the temple of Jerusalem and started flipping tables because they were defiling his father's house with the sex trade and the gambling trade. Now, he did not specifically go into the gambling houses and shut them down. That wasn't his concern, per se. What really, really upset him is that these places that were supposed to be places of holy worship turned themselves into dens of sin. And now, ironically, we have all these Christian churches that host gambling nights to fund themselves. A lot of that money doesn't even end up going to the poor. It goes into the pockets of the church. most of those tithes you give during the services, when they come around with the dish and everyone's supposed to put $5 in, that doesn't go to the poor. That goes to keep the lights on in the church. And now I understand nothing in the world is free, because y'all have made this money focused society where everyone is trying to profit off of or stand on top of someone else for their own personal gain, and that's just the way the world is. So you need income if you're going to survive in this fucked up, backwards, evil world. But the big issue with doing that is how they present it, where they aren't open and honest about it. And a lot of people think that most of that money, if not all of it, goes to the poor, when it's not. We're doing three things now, because I still didn't get to the other two I want to talk about. I guess this kind of leads into the one where Christmas isn't exactly what you think it is. I don't go to church anymore because I can't stand the hypocrisy. I look around and I see people wearing their Sunday best when Jesus specifically told us not to adorn yourselves in gold, not to show off an expensive cloth. So then people who call themselves Christians show up and they're like, hey, God, look at me with all my expensive cloth and gold. I don't get it. Hell, even the Pope adorns himself in expensive cloth and gold. Although I will say, from what I've seen, I don't really follow it much that closely anymore. This most recent Pope has started to move things back in the other direction. I believe I read an article once that he actually refused most of the special adornments usually given to the Pope, and I very much liked it when he went to Congress and chewed them out. I was a big fan of that. Jesus also said not to worship false idols made of wood and stone or other things like that. And that's actually one of the primary reasons he was put to death. Because in addition to the whole having a bunch of fervent followers following him around everywhere that scared the crap out of the Romans because they were calling him king. And according to Roman beliefs, kings were living gods, which is why they sent a whole army to arrest one man. Because if you think about it, if you were going to arrest Hercules, would you want to do it by yourself? No, probably not. So, like, as far as they were concerned, people were calling him the son of God. So, who wants to 1v1 Hercules? Not me, that's for sure. Um, Back then, 2,000 years ago, there were lobbyists too, just like there are today. And his whole, hey, let's not worship these idols, especially in the Roman culture, which had a whole pantheon of gods, all with their own sets of idols and statues and stuff, really pissed off the Craftsman Guild, because they were like, man, this guy is going to destroy our business. He's going to make us all go broke. We're not going to be able to feed our families. We need to get rid of him. So they went to their political leaders and said, hey, is there anything you can do about this guy? It wasn't just the Jews that were responsible for his death. It was everyone that didn't like that he was speaking truth to power. Yet, today, you go into a church, and what is one of the first things you see? A massive wooden idol that is 30 feet tall of the man that said, do not worship wooden idols, even down to the level of the altar, is wrong. If you go look in the Bible, there are instructions for how to build an altar to God. And one of the two most important instructions are that it should not be from cut stone. If you are going to use stone to build the altar, it should be uncut stone. And the second is that it should not be elevated above the congregation. It should be on flat, level ground. Well, go into any church, probably 95% of them, if not more, and I bet you will find an altar from cut stone that is elevated above the congregation. They literally did everything they're not supposed to do. So this brings us to the first of the two major points I want to get to. I figured this was going to be a 30-minute video when I started, and we're on course for that right now. The first is that Christmas is not what it was meant to be, and even what it was meant to be was pretty fucked up. The primary reason that we celebrate Christmas when we do is because the Christian leaders of the time got jealous and hated the pagans and wanted to overshadow their winter solstice celebrations. Jesus was not born anywhere near December, as far as we can tell. So why do we celebrate the birth of Christ? Because the Christians wanted to fill that section of their liturgical calendar with a celebration that they could make more popular than the winter solstice. And what's the biggest thing to center the entire Christian faith around? Well, obviously the birth of your idol. So, and just, I don't really want, hey, chill, cat, why are you attacking me? He literally just fucking charged me at the leg. He didn't, like, there's two other people here now. It's funny, he's been calm until my parents showed up. And now that they're here, he's been whiny and aggressive all day, more than usual. But he just really wanted to play. It's obvious. He doesn't have cat friends to play with the way he used to at the old place. But he doesn't understand that I don't have thick cat fur, and it hurts when he like claws my leg even gently. He doesn't do it enough to break skin. He knows better than to do that. But Charlie, you gotta learn to chill, cat. Anyways, even that original idea of let's celebrate the birth of Christ has been on a day that isn't even close to his birthday, by the way. As far as we can tell, it was closer to like Easter. I did some research on historians and stuff like that, non-biblical sources. There are non-biblical sources that prove he existed, by the way, because the Romans and they wrote down everything. That's why we know so much about Greek and ancient Greece and ancient Rome. It's because even though much of it is written stylistically, they wrote a lot of stuff down. So we can find non-biblical sources that prove the existence of a prophet named Jesus, I think they call it, and that he was put to death along with other insurrectionists, I believe is the source I found. So even biblical scholars have went and found, like religious scholars have went and found that he was actually more likely born early summer or spring. But just stepping away from the fact that the very origins of the Christmas celebration itself are kind of messed up, it's even worse now that the man who said to live a humble life and that a man can only have two masters, can't you can't be a slave to both money and a servant of God, has now become the most commercialized of all of the holidays, next to, besides maybe Valentine's Day, which is ironically a day celebrating love that instead celebrates money. But moving on, we'll save the Valentine's Day rant for Valentine's Day. How's that sound? So, I guess that's what I really have to say about the first major topic for now. It's very simple. It's just that y'all been doing Christmas wrong. I don't think he would really mind that much for most of us that do celebrate his birthday on these 2 days, Christmas Eve and Christmas, as long as we do so earnestly in our hearts and without the intent to exclude or overwrite someone else's celebration. And the funniest, most ironic thing for me was that part of Jesus's message was that the Jewish people were the chosen people of God, but because they abandoned God, the gates of heaven would be opened to everyone. And then, ironically, the Catholic Church went and said, everyone but the pagans, right? No, that's not how it works. Everyone means everyone. Everyone but the gays, right? Nope. Everyone. Just simply everyone. So, that's all I got to say about that one. Now, time to get into the big one. And I feel like this is going to be way too much for this video. It's taken me years to figure this out. And how do you fit years into a 30-40 minute video? Demons exist and they live within each of us. Now, what am I talking about? Am I talking about demonic possession like we see in the Exorcist movies? No, not really. But I do challenge you to watch one of those movies and then go watch a body cam video of a woman who just drunk drove through a Thanksgiving parade and put dozens of children's lives at risk, goat screaming in the back of a police vehicle, and tell me they don't look almost identical. So what are these demons I'm talking about? Demons are the negative energies we feel in our bodies and the negative thoughts, the invasive thoughts that exist in our heads. I've done a decade of self-work going inward at this point. So I don't know how many people will be able to follow this, because it kind of feels like trying to describe algebra to a kindergartner. Yeah, 1 in 1,000 might understand it because they're just a cut above the rest from the beginning, but anyone that hasn't done an intense level of self work probably going to be utterly lost at this point going forward. But there are three primary things that make up the human mortal existence. That is the body, the mind, and the soul, which I may interchangeably refer to also as the heart. When I say the heart, I mean the metaphysical one that guides us, not the physical one that keeps the body functioning. Now, what are each of these pieces? It is my belief that the heart or the soul is the immortal aspect of us that comes from God, the breath of life, so to speak. What is the body? The body is the dust we are built from that comes from the earth. It would be my belief that if the earth, Mother Gaia, is the womb of humanity, then God's Spirit is the insemination, the breath of life that created us and makes us specifically different from the lower animals. And don't forget that we are still animals, and not just any animals. We are predators, the ultimate predators, the apex predators. We like to talk about how cats or other types of creatures are apex predators, but never seem to take credence to the fact that we domesticated those predators by killing them until there were so few of them that they were not a threat to our existence anymore. And I feel that's one of the reasons that we see so many outbursts of violence in today's world. It's because people refuse to acknowledge the natural inherent violence within all of us. If you say, I could never hurt a fly, then you're lying, because you are an apex predator, whether you refuse to believe it or not. If you deny your shadow, then your shadow will control you. If you want to learn more about how to do some of this self-work in your own life, then I highly suggest you Google shadow work and Carl Jung, one of the most prominent psychologists who is mostly known for creating those personality tests that a lot of corporations make you take these days when you apply for a job, or that you may take for fun and share with your friends on whatever social media network you prefer. So far we've talked about the soul and the body. That leaves us the mind. So what is the mind? The mind is the interface that allows the immortal, ephemeral soul to interact with and control the mortal physical body. Think of it like the graphical user interface of a computer. Now, It is my personal belief that sin and wickedness come from the body, not from the soul. I believe most souls are pure. They don't remain that way, but they are born that way. I also believe that many souls, if not all of them, have come to this planet more than once. I also believe that once you leave, your soul remains in the state it was when your body dies until it comes back again. It's not like going through a washing machine. And if you think about it, even if it does go through a washing machine, once you put a stain on something, does it ever get as clean as it once was? I think we all know the answer is no. So, the Bible also warns that no one is beyond redemption except those who have rejected God in their hearts. Now, because we have this hierarchy of the human being where we have the body, then we have the mind, which acts as the buffer and the interface between the two, and then we have the soul, which is the aspect of the divine, which in ourselves, it is very, very difficult to reach a level where you have sinned or become so evil that you reject God in your soul. That is not to say that every action we do does not affect the soul, for literally every action, whether it's as simple as being really nasty to someone on the street because they got your coffee order wrong, or walking up to someone in the street and shooting them in the back because you've never been able to find a cure for your back pain. All of these things inherently affect the soul, albeit to different degrees. However, just like any buffer, if you've ever pulled a furnace filter out or pulled a water filter out, after a lot of use, it eventually gets very dirty. And the more of those large impact things you put through it, the dirtier it will get, the faster it will get. And once it reaches a certain level of saturation, it no longer provides any protection. I believe that's where these people end up that cannot control themselves emotionally and act out in the most ridiculous and evil ways, and then show no remorse for their actions. That is at the point where, if you go any farther, if you haven't already, you are going to reject God in your soul, and then there's no hope for you. Please, all of you who are my friends, all of you who even despise me, the things I say, because the whole reason I stopped talking publicly for the longest time was because no matter how much I speak the truth, most people don't believe me, and many of them choose to rally against me and try and make my life miserable. But I don't care what it costs me anymore. I've kind of reached the point where there's so much evil, so much darkness in the world that I refuse to exist in a world that has no light left. So if I have to be the only one trying to bring light to the world, then I will do that whatever the cost. And that's what really all these videos have been about, and why I've decided to keep doing them even though I have completed the coffee advent calendar. Now, we can talk more about how to find these demons or invasive thoughts, because it really starts as a progress. Many of you who know me personally know that I choose to go by the name X now. And part of the reason was when I was going through dark places in my life, I heard not necessarily voices, like I do believe many who experience from uh, mental disorders do, but I would have a lot of invasive thoughts. And I could tell that they weren't really coming from my heart, from my soul. So, as a process of trying to distinguish my real thoughts from the invasive thoughts, I named my internal monologue X and started giving them letters from the alphabet. And then eventually I found out that some of them had their own names, and that was a kind of terrifying discovery. But once I learned their names, I was more able to easily get rid of them. And that's why I do believe in biblical demons, because I've met some of them. And some of you live with them every day, and you just refuse to admit it. For example, the most obvious ones are the 7 deadly sins. Each of those is a demon that you let ruin your life, and then you refuse to acknowledge the effect it has on your life, so you blame other people for the fact that your life is miserable. The one I struggled with the most has always been pride, but if you can't tell from how much I love coffee and food, gluttony is a big one as well. And I don't know whether third would be sloth or lust, because I've always quietly wanted most just to find a good woman to spend the rest of my life with, but I've not always pursued that in the most appropriate of manners. Sloth is probably bigger though, because I get easily overwhelmed emotionally, and there have been weeks or months where I did nothing but sit around eating comfort food and playing video games or binge watching TV, because I just couldn't cope anymore. And usually that was as a result of my pride being injured. So these demons have many names. Money is a big one. That's one I never particularly had to struggle with. I've never been interested in money, which interestingly has always led to money problems, because I I give it away too freely and then it never comes back to me. So that's kind of the second half of the rant that I never got to. And we're going to save that one for next year, I've decided. Um, we're going to talk about money in 2025, but not right now. We're going to chill for the rest of the year. I don't know if I'm going to do one of these videos tomorrow because I am planning to spend time with my family tomorrow. My parents are in town. We are meeting the extended family for a nice Christmas get together, and hopefully, I don't flip too many tables there. But I'm probably going to take the day off from these daily upload coffee videos and then come back on the 26th or the 27th with the other coffees that I have. That two I haven't tried yet. One is one of my favorite all-time coffees, and then we'll see if I have any new coffee to try after that. Actually, there's two other unopened coffees. So we have at least four coffees. I can't do math apparently. Four coffees that we can try and continue these videos. But I'm going to take tomorrow off. I am going to stream a little bit later tonight. I might potentially be playing some Marvel Rivals with some friends, but this also took way longer than expected. I expected to be done with this video like about an hour or two ago. I don't know if they're still going to be awake, and they didn't even know if they were going to stream tonight. So my plan right now is to just relax, maybe play some Path of Exile, but there are a few YouTube videos I want to watch on stream and commentate about. And then I'm going to try and call it an early night, at least for me, so I can wake up in time to spend time with my family. Yeah, I guess that's the whole gist of it. It's probably going to take a lot longer to upload these videos than I expected because it's a big video and the internet here isn't great. So I may be live by the time this video is posted. If I get tired of waiting for it to go up, I'm going to have a little food. And then I don't like eating on stream. I know a lot of people do it. I don't like doing it. I'll do it during a long stream if I'm streaming for like 20 hours and I get really hungry and I'm not ready to end the stream, then yeah, I'll do it. But often I end up turning off the camera when I do that anyways. But I'm going to make some food, upload these videos, and then I'm going to be live for maybe just an hour or two, commentating on some videos, maybe playing a little Path of Exile, maybe playing a little Marvel Rivals. And then I'm going to take tomorrow off. No uploads, no streams, and you can expect me to be back on the 26th or the 27th, depending on what I end up doing with my family. So I just want to say, again, Merry Christmas. Don't forget the true meaning of Christmas, which is to be humble and loving and gentle and to celebrate love with your family, whether that is your birth family or your adopted family, your work family, everyone. And to be kind to your neighbor, whether you believe in their political beliefs or their personal lifestyle choices or not. Christmas is about love, first and foremost. Please don't forget that. Cheers.